Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Uncommon Sense with Jose Negron. Now, for the benefit of those of you who are not familiar with the channel or watching this channel for the first time, the reason why it is called Uncommon Sense because here on this platform, we discuss everyday issues where we try to find logical solutions. But not everyone uses logic. For that reason, it is called Uncommon Sense. I also have another YouTube channel called Latina Diaspora where I discuss issues pertaining to Latinos in the United States. The link to that channel is in the description. I want to let everybody know that I'm currently live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. Also, the subscriber mode has been enabled for the first 5 minutes, meaning if you're not a subscriber and if you wish to enter a comment in the chat, you need to have been a subscriber for at least 5 minutes. As always, I want to give a huge shout out to all those who've already subscribed to the channel. Whether you've been a supporter from the very beginning or just recently joined, I appreciate your love and continued support. And we have reached another milestone. We have reached over 2,000 subs. So a huge shout out to you, and I'm truly humbled by the amount of love and support that this channel has received. And it's all for the glory of God. I also want to give a huge shout out to all those who follow me on social media, as well as those who allow me to enter into your devices and those who watch from the clouds, even the haters. So what I'm going to ask you to do, if you have not done so already, I'm going to ask you to please subscribe, like, and set the bell notifications to all. So therefore, whenever I do produce content, you will have the opportunity to catch it live or catch it on the playback. So as you can see by the thumbnail, the topic for tonight is the mental health expert. So what I'm going to give you is some information to consider to seek a mental health professional. Okay. But before we get into the main topic, we're going to have another episode of In My Words. Tonight, we're going to begin with some sad news. Unfortunately, I have had another death in my family. Okay. One of my cousins, his name was Manuel Alagro, passed away. In fact, he passed away on March the 10th, which was Tuesday. Now, I didn't get the information regarding his passing until yesterday. And the information is very sketchy. All I know for a fact that my cousin was suffering from dementia, okay, and his health deteriorated. Now, was it a rapid deterioration or long term? That I don't know, okay. What I will say that he was young. He was only 58 years old when he passed away. And of course, today we had the wake for him. The burial will be tomorrow morning. And understandably, there was a great deal of sadness by his own children. His mother, my aunt, took his passing very hard. So you can just imagine a parent losing a child. That's something that I would not wish on anyone. And it does focuses on the fact that tomorrow is not promised to anybody. Death can visit us at any point, at any time. Okay. So I make it a point when I get up in the morning is to thank God for allowing me to wake up to see the light of day. Because the fact of the matter is that comes at a time that we least expect it, for the most part. And I was able to see cousins I haven't seen in quite a while. And they had a very touching service by uh, the church that my cousin attended. And we were able to share stories about our life, about his life, and I just want to say that my condolences go to his brothers, his children, and of course my aunt. And of course, I'm going to say a few words in Spanish. Mi primo Manuel Alagro se falleció el martes pasado. Tenía solamente 58 años de edad. Cuando se fue a casa con el Señor, él sufría de demencia. Yo no sé todos los detalles con respecto de su enfermedad. De eso nos enseña que mañana no está comprometido a nadie. So we were all able to share a little anecdotes with him that while the loved ones is no longer physically present, as long as we have fond memories of them, they will continue to live in our hearts. And also, I impress on my family um, the importance of using your time properly and value your time, and to make the most of it, and be mindful of the fact that tomorrow is not promised to anyone. And what made things a little easier is that my cousin was reconciled to the Lord before he passed away. And that brought some consolation, not only for me, but on his family as well. Because it's stated in Hebrews 9, verse 27, it is appointed for all to die at once, and after that, the judgment. And depending how one lived their life will determine what type of judgment that they will receive. If they die as a believer, the judgment is going to be based on how they use the gifts and talents that God gave them. If the person died as a non-believer, there's only one place they will go: eternal separation from God forever. There is no second chance after the person passed away. So that's why the Bible talks about now is the time for salvation. So I am saddened to see him depart, but glad that he made his peace with God. So, cousin, I'm going to miss you very much, but we'll see each other again um, in heaven. So, now the next thing I want to talk about is how women, okay, I'm going to use it, some women are very delusional when it comes of their expectation of a man. Okay. They expect the man to be perfect in every way. And when I mean perfect, he has to be 6 feet tall. He has to have a six pack. He has to make an income that's at least six figures, perfect in any way. Be willing to spend whatever money, no matter what. So they can have all the expectations of a man, but yet they are led to believe that as long as they have a vagina, that's all they need. They don't need to do anything else. They don't need to be a support. They don't need to uh, offer anything. They don't need to be a helpmate for the man, support for the man, to be the man's sort of peace, to be the man's shelter, safety, and the fact of the matter is, unfortunately, women have made some poor choices. Poor choices as far as the type of relationships that they pursue. Poor choices as far as granting a man a privilege to, to carry a child. The fact that many of them to choose to get pregnant before getting married, and the fact that some of these women have body counts in the hundreds, and then expecting a perfect man to cater to their every whim, while these some of these, I'm not going to use the term loosely, ladies have nothing to other than a vagina and the fact that they have a huge body count. And what gets me is that they can have all the expectations in the world, but if a man express expectations, they get defensive, they get upset, they get annoyed, they get emotional. But let me make this perfectly clear. Both sexes have made poor choices as far as dating concerned. Okay. And one thing we have to bear in mind, we have to be realistic as far as the options available. If you are a woman that's morbidly obese and you have an obnoxious behavior and you're trying to be like a boss chick, your options are going to be very limited because men are not going to pursue these type of women in any way, shape, or form. Now, some of you might think I'm women bashing. No, I'm not women bashing. What I'm stating is facts. For the most part, or maybe let's put it this way, mature men, for the most part, are looking for women who will be feminine, will be nurturing, caring, supporting, okay, uh, to be a lifetime partner that's going to value him and not try to seek validation by um, posting other thirsty pictures to get gratification from men. And of course, they talk about, men can sleep with a whole bunch of women, but women can sleep with a whole bunch of men. Okay, first of all, there is one difference between a man and a woman. Men cannot get pregnant, women can. Okay. So these are things that women, some of these women need to take into account. Okay. Now, can a woman reform herself? Absolutely. But she has to have the desire to do so. Furthermore, um, if they have like children through more than one man that they, for whatever reason, chose not to marry, that to be mindful of the fact that not every man is willing to take a woman with children because that's a big responsibility. Particularly if you factor in that they're not allowed to discipline these children. Factor in the fact that that the baby that the absent fathers are always going to be in the picture. So there are many factors. Now I'm not saying that all single mothers are the same. Okay, we have to make a distinction between women who became single mothers because of death. We have to make a distinction between women who became single mothers because they were the victims of physical abuse. We have to take into account women that were abandoned by the husband. And we also take into account women that made poor choices as far as who they wish to marry or who they wish to grant the men the ultimate privilege of bearing a child. And many men I'm not dating women at all because many now women that express outrageous expectations. And of course, we have videos of women going on saying that if they have a choice between marrying a man or getting being with a bear, they chose the bear. So I would say to you, you know what? Enjoy your enjoy your time with Boo Boo. Enjoy your time with with Smokey the Bear. Okay. And then some of these women are complaining, where are the men? Well, if you go around talking about saying that you are a boss chick, talk about saying that they have their hand on you and take you as it is, and you and being wretched as you are with extremely high body counts. What do you expect? People need to be realistic regarding our options. And I'm going to apply this standard to myself. I am in my 60s. So therefore, if I'm single, realistically, the best option I can pursue is women who are in their 60s or possibly 50s. Okay, I should not be trying to pursue a 20 something year or 30 or what have you. Okay, because most likely they're not going to. Let's be mindful. Um, we need to be realistic as far as our expectations, as far as dating the opposite sex. And, and with that being said, we're going to go to the next topic. Uh, Let me state for the record, wishes to hit the link regarding the topic at hand, they may do so. Let me make this perfectly clear. If I've never seen you before, if I never heard from you before, I will insist that you camp up the backstage to make sure, which will cause the people of YouTube to take down their strength. Once I determine you're not going to try that, then I'll let you on the panel. Now, the whole topic for tonight is basically how to go about selecting a proper mental health expert, a therapist. Okay, and there's lots of areas when ways that you can select one. Nowadays, many large organizations, many large companies have what's called EAP, which is short for Employment Assistance Program. And what the purpose of these programs is to provide mental health services to employees that are dealing with mental health issues, which can affect their performance at work. Okay. So basically, with each organization, there's a different procedure. But in general, what they would do is they would contact someone in EAP. They will express their need to seek a mental health person regarding whatever issue that they are pursuing or they're dealing with. And then what they'll do is they'll recommend someone, and then they'll schedule an appointment um, to see that mental health professional. Now, I've stated before that, of course, in my generation, which is a baby boomer generation, um, that was discouraged for a long time under the erroneous belief that if you admit that you need a mental health professional was a sign that you was not well, it was a sign that was insane. That's not the case. In fact, if anything, if you reach the point when you determine that you need to speak with a therapist, it means that um, you are realistically trying to seek a solution to your mental health issues, and half the battle is wrong. It's all is done. Because the biggest obstacle is to admit that you have a problem. And sometimes people will have a hard time admitting it. It will be either because of shame or because of pride or possibly both. There are some people that believe that no matter what's going on, they can resolve their issues by themselves. And sometimes that's just not possible. Sometimes you do need um, a therapist to help you deal with whatever trauma or mental health issues that you are experiencing. Now, if you work for an employer that does not have an EAP program, then what you can always do is reach out to your primary care physician, and I'm sure he or she will recommend a trained, licensed therapist that you can confide in. Here in New York City, we have what's called NYC Well, where New Yorkers are able to seek therapy um, to deal with whatever mental issues that they are addressing, or to address any personal issues. Excuse me, just want to get my thoughts. So, and many times, your healthcare plans will provide coverage, um, depending on the nature of your health plan, a certain number of visits within a calendar year. And of course, another option you have is, of course, um, seeking out therapy with friends. Okay. Now, when it comes to friends, I'm talking about people who are mature, who truly care about you, and won't judge you by the fact that you decide to seek professional help. Because your true friends, when they find out that you're trying to seek professional help, will actually try to assist you. They may know of a therapist that that can steer you in the proper direction. Now I'm going to tell you what you should do when you do have a therapist. One thing it's very important that you reveal with the therapist everything that's causing you these to have these mental issues. It's the same principle when you go see a physician regarding an ailment. What you're going to do is you're going to share with the physician what are the symptoms, when the symptoms begin, how, and how long you've been dealing with the symptoms. Based on the information that you give to your primary care physician, they're going to prescribe medicine to deal with it. They may advise you to change your diet. They may advise you to develop healthy habits to deal with other physical ailments that you're dealing with. Now, when it comes to a therapist, it is very important that you be honest with the therapist regarding what is what is troubling you, what is robbing you of your peace, what is not allowing you to function as a healthy adult. And one thing that I have said before, and I will continue to say, in order for you to be properly healthy, you have to be physically well, mentally well, emotionally well, and spiritually well. Because if you're not well in one aspect, it's going to affect the other three. As I like to refer to it as the four legs of good health, which is physical wellness, mental wellness, emotional wellness, and spiritual wellness. When I mean physical, I mean as far as not dealing with any physical ailments. Mental well being that you are at peace with yourself, that you're not dealing with any mental trauma or things of that nature. Emotional wellness being that you are well with your emotional about yourself and you're not triggered. And spiritual wellness, in other words, making peace with being at peace with God or whoever you consider to be your higher power. Okay. In my case, I'm a Christian. So therefore it's important for me that I be well in good relationship with God, making sure that I am not dealing with any spiritual issues, and if I am, take it up with God, take it up to God to let God deal with it. So when you see the therapist, particularly for the first time, you need to be honest. Okay. One thing we have to understand that there's certain individual professionals that have rules regarding confidentiality. There are physicians, therapists, lawyers, and men of the cloth, which are clergy. Okay. In fact, priests have a vow of silence, meaning that they will not reveal what was said in the confessional, because if a priest does break the seal and does share information that was said in confession, they could be excommunicated. In other words, have no communion with the church. So one thing we have to bear in mind that whatever information that you share with a therapist is it will be kept confidential. And it's very important because sometimes a patient may have to deal with deep emotional scars. Sometimes they could be victims of physical abuse. Sometimes they could be victims of as being SA or being raped. Um, Sometimes they've gone through traumatic situations. Maybe they see a loved one being deleted as a child or even as a young adult, or maybe They may have had a very traumatic experience. Maybe they have a going through the death of a romantic relationship, or maybe dealing with the death of a loved one. So these are things that can cause trauma. So it's very important for the individual to share with the therapist um, as much detailed information as they can recall, and of course, based on the information that they do provide, based on the symptoms that they are experiencing, the mental health expert will develop coping strategies for the patients to deal with. Sometimes it may require certain medication. Other times it will just be therapy, or sometimes it could be a combination of the both. Now, in my case, as far as the times that I sought therapy, uh, I was fortunate in the sense that there was no need to give me medication to deal with the symptoms that I was demonstrating. Okay. What the therapist did was uh, gave me other coping mechanisms, other ways to cope, other ways to address um, the symptoms which I was dealing with. One thing to bear in mind is that when you're dealing with a mental health professional, depending on the nature of the mental health issues that you are experiencing, it can take days, it can take weeks, it can take months. Uh, it all depends. It all depends on the mental health issues which you are experiencing. Okay. And of course, one thing you bear in mind that um, there is a level of trust that needs to be maintained, and at the same time, the therapist must make sure that they don't violate that trust with the patient. Okay, because there are consequences for mental health physicians, therapists that do violate their confidentiality and do harm. Okay, but I would say, for the most part, most mental health professionals are very professional, caring individuals who are properly trained to help deal with all sorts of mental health issues. As far as how frequent um, that they see a therapist, it's usually once a week, and usually they try to maintain uh, um, a certain schedule. Sometimes it could be the same day of the week. Sometimes it could be the same hour of the week. It all depends. It depends as far as your schedule is concerned. It also depends on the schedule on the therapist. And one thing to bear in mind is that sometimes, and I mean sometimes, there might be um, situations where the therapist may need to reschedule uh, due to unforeseen situations that do occur. Excuse me. Also, there might be situations where a mental health professional may need to intervene. Okay, and these are things that the patient needs to understand, and the therapist needs to communicate with the patient. Okay, part of it is out of courtesy, and also part of it is that things do develop, and it is very important that the therapist be transparent. Just at the same time, the patient needs to be transparent with the therapist. If there's a need that they have to reschedule because of something that might happen, maybe they have to work away, or maybe they're dealing with a family emergency, things of that nature. So it's very important that both the patient be transparent and the therapist be transparent. Okay. Now, as far as whether the therapist should be a male or a female, me personally, I have never had that issue. My concern is that whoever is my therapist, it be someone that's professionally trained, someone that can assist me in dealing with the issues that I deal with and the symptoms I'm dealing with. Now, I know there are some people that would prefer a male therapist, and then there's some people that would prefer a female therapist. Um, Put me personally, um, I really don't care regarding the person's gender. I am more concerned about whether the person has the qualifications to be a therapist. I'm more concerned with if the therapist is willing to listen, is the therapist willing to do an assessment, um, if the therapist is prepared to help with the patient to cope with whatever mental trauma that they are experiencing. That is what's important to me. As far as whether it be a male or female or what have you, that's to me in my book is irrelevant. To some other people, it may be relevant, but for me, it was never relevant. Now, once um, you do find a therapist and you do come across with a schedule, things of that nature, um, again, the therapy can last a matter of weeks or a matter of months. It all depends on the symptoms, it all depends on the mental health issues uh, that the patient is exhibiting. And of course, from time to time, the therapist may question the patient on whether or not they have any desires um, to hurt themselves or to delete themselves. Okay. And the reason behind that, because unfortunately, there are some individuals that are so traumatized, who are so hurt, who are so wounded, um, has expressed a desire to self delete. And of course, There are numerous resources um, to help individuals who are concerned that it may harm themselves or delete themselves. I have shared those symptoms before, those resources before, and when it's time, I will share them again. And part of the treatment may be doing assessments, um, just to gauge how the person is functioning. So these are some of the things to consider when you are trying to see a professional therapist. And again, there should be no shame attached if you perceive that you need to seek a mental health professional. Okay, the only shame is to keep silent and not try to seek help. There's no shame if you recognize the need for help and actually seeking it. I'm going to stop to wrap this up because I don't think anybody's going to hop on. But let me more amazing. So what I will be discussing, being that it's Women's History Month, I will share some of the achievements that women have made. Because contrary to what some people think, women have made great achievements in many different fields, in the field of business, politics, many areas. And of course, again, if you have not done so, I'm going to ask you to please subscribe, like, and set the bell notifications to all. So therefore, whenever I do produce content, you will have the opportunity to catch it live or catch it on the playback. And of course, the playback end, you're more than welcome to enter your comments. Just try to keep it respectable because if not, your comments are going to be deleted. And again, a huge shout out to my supporters. Um, I now have over 2,000 subs, and of course, I'm humbled by that, and it's all for the glory of God. So, with that being said, I'm going to call it a night, and I'm going to close the same way that we always close. We must do everything possible to avoid the presence of the mentally and intellectually challenged, because if we fail to do so, we will be infected by the stupidity and massive insanity. And of course, whatever we say and do, we should do for the glory of God. This has been another episode of Uncommon Sense with Jose Negron saying good night, stay blessed, take care, and peace.